And now, Your Home's Foundation with Ruth Fry.
Hello, and welcome to Your Home's Foundation. I'm Ruth Fry, and with me today are Dan and Susie Stroff with Better Basement from Des Moines, Iowa. Now, Susie, we have some special guests here. I understand that Dan has a nickname.
I tend to call him the basement whisperer.
And what is that about?
That is about his medical past. Dan went through some throat surgery about 10 years ago, had throat cancer, and got rid of the cancer. He's as healthy as he can be right now, but it's left him with a strong, clear whisper.
Yes. Yeah, about 10 years ago, they found a tumor on my voice box, and the surgery was very successful. I was very lucky. They removed it with a laser.
Oh, wow.
And so now, the company and my customers, they all call me the basement whisperer.
Very
I
good.
think it's great.
Very good. That's awesome. That's awesome. So you guys are based out of Des Moines, Iowa, and I understand that the soils up there, for the most part, are pretty stable until the last couple of years. The drought's really having an effect.
Correct. We've had, in the last 2 years, we had the worst drought on record. When they started keeping records, it wasn't this bad. So we've noticed a lot of things, Ruth.
So Susie, what are your homeowners experiencing? What are they calling in and asking about?
Well, they call in and ask questions. They notice cracks coming in. And maybe water where they haven't had water before because of these differences in the soil conditions. You know, with the drought coming through. It may be a house that has been, our house is 60 years old and it's always been dry, but then all of a sudden I've noticed, a crack up above the window and the door I can't shut, and I went down in the basement and there's some cracks, but I've got a little water coming in. And it just kind of all leads back to the shifting of the foundation, the soil conditions, but they're mostly concerned about, I guess, cosmetic issues that they see on the house.
Okay. And so Dan, what would you suggest, or what would happen next for them?
Well, first of all, their concerns with their cracks. When they see these cracks, they don't know what is going on. And there's fear there, and there should be, because cracks lead to breaks. If there's really an issue with your foundation and you're starting to see small cracks turn into wider cracks, and then we go from cracks to breaks. And then the footing will break, and that's when they'll notice their doors not shutting, the windows sticking, patio doors that can't slide anymore and shut. It's a serious situation. And now there are cracks that aren't serious. We call them natural cracks. But cracks tell a story. Cracks tell the truth. And if you have experience with the type of cracks, it's good sometimes we can go out and give the customer good news. Say, hey, this is just normal. You got some settlement. You just need to patch the sheetrock and repaint. But in most cases, it's not natural cracking. There's something going on. And it's funny because the wives usually notice this before the husbands. And it's, 75 to 80% of the time, the wives are calling. And the husbands sometimes don't think it's a big deal until they call us out and we say, look, this is a big deal. And let me tell you what's going on here. So we like to educate the customer about what's going on with their home. And we appreciate their calls. And they need to be interested. They need to take this seriously. Ruth.
And so, when you've identified that you really think it is a problem, then what is the next step, and how do people afford to pay for this stuff?
Well, the price depends upon the problem, the failure, how much failure. If you can catch these problems early, that's the key. If you see any kind of cracks, you should be on the telephone to the nearest foundation repair representative. In our case, we use Chance. But the first step would be them making the phone call, calling us up, asking for someone to come out and take a look at their concerns, their major concerns. And so we'll send one of our experts who's been trained specifically in foundation repair and also certified with Chance, so that they know when they go out to the house and they walk around the outside to look for noticeable cracking, and when they go inside and downstairs in the basement or the crawl space with flashlights and coveralls. It's a nasty job, but we have to be thorough in checking out what's going on with that foundation. And then we would do a walkthrough upstairs with the customer, which doors aren't shutting, where are the cracks in the sheetrock above windows and at the corners of windows. We look at chimneys in case they might start to settle, or you'll see them pull away from the roof. A lot of things that the customers don't notice. They'll see the cracks, and then we come out. We can educate them further on things they didn't even realize.
So if a homeowner sees the foundation repair trucks have been in their neighborhood, should they assume that their house is going to fail also?
Well, not always. The common question I get from the homeowners is, look, I know my neighbors, and our house has cracks. The houses on each side of us don't have any cracks. And it's very common because it's not the soil that the house is sitting on, as you would think. It's soils change every 6 feet as you go deep beneath the soils.
Oh, that's kind of the strata that you learn about in grade school.
It sure is.
Okay.
So, with the earth constantly revolving and the shifting and the expanding and the contracting of the soil underneath the house, 30, 40, 50 feet deep, it's what's under the house, not what it's sitting on. It's the soils and the expansion and contraction. And then the amount of rainfall, or the lack of rainfall, is what causes these foundations to do the shifting.
All right, well, that was very interesting. And after the break, I want to talk to you about water drainage and homes that have neighbors that put in retaining walls, or maybe you know that you're built on a stream or something like that. So we'll be right back after the break.
More from Your Home's Foundation when we return. It's what you don't see that matters most. If you're experiencing the symptoms of a settling foundation, turn to the company that invented the foundation repair industry. Strength, integrity, trust. These are the foundations upon which we stand. With the largest network of dealers across the country, Chance is America's ground force. Welcome back to Your Home's Foundation with Ruth Fry.
Hello and welcome back to Your Home's Foundation. Today I have with me Dan and Susie Straw with Better Basement out of Des Moines, Iowa. I cannot say that word. And so Susie, when people call you, what are some of the more interesting phone calls you've gotten?
I think the calls really that affect me the most is when a homeowner calls and obviously they're going to call me because they have issues with their home. I had a man call me the other day. He's on the phone and he tells me he's standing down in the basement. He goes, let me tell you the problem I have. I'm standing in my basement right now and I'm looking at daylight through the wall. I don't have any windows down here. Can you help me with this?
Oh, wow.
Right, and it's what really feels good to me is what I like about this business, you know, and it's not a pretty business. You know, we get down and we get dirty and we get in the dirt.
Right.
But when we leave, it feels so good to know that we have given them their home back. You know, they have their home and it's solid and it's going to be with them for the rest of the life of the home. And they can feel secure in that and know that, you know, their kids or whatever, everything is safe and protected because we've walked out and there's no more looking at daylight where there is no window.
Well, very good. Very good. And Dan, what kind of solution do you remember that particular homeowner?
I do. And his corner of his house was settling. And so when the footing drops, because the wall's sitting on it and it's concreted together, something's got to give. So it'll create a crack where there's a seam in the forms when they poured the foundation. foundation, there are cracks and seams every 32 inches.
Right.
So that's the weakest point. So it'll usually start, the first crack will be about 6 feet in from the corner, and then about every 6 feet, you'll notice where it's pulling and settling. And so in this gentleman's crack, the first crack was much wider than the second or the third. But if you don't stop it, it'll just continue all around the house and around and up the other side of the basement.
So a quick fix or a cheap fix would be to put some sort of a foundation support underneath that corner of the house, but what you're saying is that that's probably not a permanent solution. You've got to do more.
Well, yes. There is no cheap fix when it comes to foundation repair, unfortunately. Now, some jobs will range from $5,000. Some jobs will be $50,000.
Wow.
On a residential home. So if you only need 2 or 3, 4 piers, that's your $5,000 range. But if you get into 30 piers and it's $40,000 to $50,000, that's someone who's let it go too long. And it's obvious that when it gets to that stage, most of our jobs are $10,000 to $20,000 in the foundation repair range. And then, this gentleman, we had to waterproof the inside of the basement and put a rubber membrane on the wall because you can't seal up a crack 100%.
Right.
You've got to put a membrane on a rubber membrane, that when that water leaks in, it'll divert that water down into our drainage system and to a sump pump. But the basement can remain dry for the life of the basement. Once we do this, a person can go ahead and put up their studs and their sheetrock and feel safe because that rubber membrane's there to protect them.
Now, I grew up in St. Louis, and I don't remember there ever being sump pumps in basements. But now I live in Kansas City, and it seems like that's a pretty common occurrence in Kansas City. What about in Des Moines?
It is. In fact, 15 years ago, it was not a rule. They did not even put them in new homes. And just in the last 15 years, with water problems and foundation problems, we've had 2 major droughts in the last 15 years. So our codes have gotten more strict, where they put brand new sump pumps and baskets in brand new homes.
Well, that makes absolutely no sense to me, though. Why would a drought lead you to put a sump pump in, which is about getting water out of the basement?
Well, most of the time we have normal rainfall in Iowa. And the old technology is to run tile around the outside of the house. It's still a common code. But the new technology is to keep the tile up out of the dirt and just break out the floor and put our drainage system right on top of the footing so that this system never clogs. Our cities and our codes are still living in the old world where they're using tile and rock to solve problems, and these tiles eventually clog. Otherwise, we wouldn't be in business.
Right. Okay, so let me understand. You said the old code was that when you built a home,
To tile around the
you
house.
tiled around the outside of the house.
And put rock over the top of it. And these tiles are supposed to catch the water that runs down through the backfill.
But I guess 20, 30 years ago, those tiles were literally tile. They were some sort of a clay product, whereas
They sure
now they
were.
would be a plastic or a
It's like
poly,
a corrugated.
a corrugated, right.
Plastic to perforated pipe. Yeah.
So then you could almost assume that almost any house would need at some point that drain really should be fixed, and it might, if they would fix, how would they know?
Well, here,
Let's get to what I'm trying to say.
Let's
How
get
would
to
they
it.
know if their drain is the whole issue, and if they knew that that drain was bad, that they fixed that, and then maybe it would keep their foundation from settling and moving in and
well, correct. In some cases, yes. There's a rule in our business. There's 2 types of basements. Those that leak and those that are gonna leak.
that's terrible. I don't like that
And
saying.
it's because of the old technology. And a lot of people are now becoming aware of the new technology with piering foundations and waterproofing basements and repairing failed basement walls. We're having to tear out some block walls and replace with new block walls. But we put in rebar to strengthen them. It wasn't a code in the
Oh, wow.
That became code in 1972. So any block walls that are previous to 1972 have serious issues.
Oh, wow.
Now, if you go back to 1910, 1920, those were clay block walls. Now, in some cases, those walls were stronger because the cells are on the center of the block. I don't mean to get too technical, but the old foundations were stronger. Then they went to concrete block in the 50s. And so with those issues, poured walls came out. Now poured walls are strong, but they have the opportunity to leak every 32 inches.
Okay.
So half of our waterproofing business are the newer styled poured walls.
Okay. All right. So now, let's say your neighbor puts in a retaining wall and screws up the waterways or the water drainage, what was original in the neighborhood, what the builder probably had to do to code, and now you've got water coming in your basement. I mean, are you going to have to dig up the floor? What can you do?
Well, the code is each homeowner is supposed to divert their own water off of their property.
Right onto yours.
Well, sometimes that's the case. But they're supposed to divert it off of their lot, not onto your lot. So I don't want to get into that issue. It's, whose lawyer can beat up their lawyer. But if you got water coming in the basement, give us a call. We can come out and do an inspection, find out why it's coming in, and we've got a solution for you.
All right. Well, very good. Very good. You had mentioned Chance before. What is Chance?
Chance is a company that we feel fortunate to be working with, that we buy, they're our distributor, we buy our material for when we do piering products. And we use the Atlas push piers. We've worked with other distributors, but we feel really good working with this company because they give us so much support, which as company owners is really good for us, but for a homeowner, what that means is that they come in and not only have they trained us and we take tests online and you have to pass your test, but they send people out to the job sites with us to make sure that our installers know good and well what they're putting in the ground. So it's, for us being a small business, we know that we can walk in or walk up to somebody's home and we know what we're doing. And if we have questions about that, if there's some strange situation which, can always come up, we can pick up the phone and call somebody and we know that they're going to help us.
Oh, very good. And so you and your installers are certified through Chance.
Correct.
Very
Correct.
good. Very good.
Now I got to say I haven't been down in the ditches with them, so I was just certified online with the terminology and knowing how it works.
Right. But they're not expecting you to design the layout or of the repair. Very good. Very good. Well, thank you so much. This was so interesting, and I think it was very helpful to the homeowners, especially in the Des Moines. I still can't say that word. Area. It's a good thing I don't live there. All right, and we'll be right back.
More from Your Home's Foundation when we return. You could say we're a company that's truly down to earth. We believe in things made in America, in building a solid foundation. In fact, we didn't just lay down these ground rules, we invented them. Since 1912, we've been the industry leader in providing foundation solutions. Welcome back to Your Home's Foundation with Ruth Fry.
Welcome back to Your Home's Foundation. I'm Ruth Fry, and I have with me Dan and Susie from Des Moines, Iowa, with Better Basements. Now, Susie, when we went to break, you were talking about Chance, and I kind of caught a hint that you've been in the business a little bit longer than you've been with Chance. Why did you change, or why should people choose Chance over one of the competition?
When I look at a company, I like to see different reasons. On my end of it, I look at the support. I look at what they can bring to my company that basically makes us shine to the homeowners and makes us more valuable to the homeowners. along with the training that they offer, with they're right there on the spot service that they give us. Knowing that when I make a phone call, that they're going to be there to answer it, and I'm not going to be waiting a couple days to get it back. There's other good products out there. There's no doubt about it. This isn't the only peering system out there, but it's the amount of time that this company has been around, to me, is very impressive. Very impressive. And at a recent dealer convention, one thing I heard is that they have never had a peer fail. I mean, that's great for them. That's wonderful for us, because now we can sell more of those, because we know as a company we're putting something in the ground that has never failed.
Right.
Look, Chance is the oldest manufacturer of beers. They started it 112 years ago. They patented the product. They've been at it longer than any other company out there. A lot of these other beer manufacturers have come about because of Chance. No one does the engineering and the testing, the continuous testing of their products like Chance. And there's some good ones out there, but when I say good, they're decent, but they're not up here with Chance when it comes to foundation repair, the quality of their products, and the ISO testing that is continuous. I've used some other products. They were good products. But when I had the opportunity to go with Chance, and I feel very fortunate, Ruth, that they chose us, I was very excited that they wanted somebody in our area to represent them, because I knew they were the biggest and they were the best. I just never had the opportunity to become a dealer, so it came about, and we're very happy that they chose us.
Very good. That's awesome. Thank you so much. All right. And on our last show, we were talking a lot about the drought and the way, the soils are shrinking. And somebody wrote in and asked about watering their foundation. That doesn't make any sense to me at all. How do you feel about that, Dan?
Well, it's one of the myths in foundation repair, is that if you can keep your foundation wet, it won't settle. The problem with most people, if they start watering it, it's the water that will cause the settlement. So it's not a good idea at all. You gotta let Mother Nature take its course. And like I said earlier, it's what's going on underneath the foundation, 30, 40 feet, Ruth, not what's going on top. It's like some people think if your basement's leaking, just put in a sump pump. Well, that sump pump will take care of the water around the sump pump. But what if it leaks 6 feet down the wall or on the other side of the basement? You have to have a drainage system all the way around to pick up water that takes it to the sump pump. So it's a myth, and I'll leave it at that.
Well, what about the trees in your yard and the shrubs and that kind of stuff? Is that pulling the water away from the soil and making it a...
Yes, in some cases, yes. Big trees have big roots, and those roots need to have a drink of water every now and then. And if they're close to your foundation, tree roots absorb a lot of the moisture, and they kind of pull it away from your foundation. So they steal the water, the roots, because they need it. But also, if they're big enough, they'll put pressure on your foundation wall and actually push the wall in. So then in a lot of cases we have to remove that wall, cut the tree roots with a chainsaw, sometimes killing the tree. But if the tree's killing the foundation, the tree has to go.
Right. And I would think that's sometimes a hard conversation.
Well, it is, but we have to tell the customer the truth and let them tell us what they want to do.
Right.
If they're in love with the tree or their largest investment they're probably going to make.
One of the other things that I think is interesting is that now women are making a lot of the home decisions and making the phone calls and that kind of thing. And I think it's really hard, though, to choose who wants to sink this money in the dirt. I mean, I think everybody would rather have new countertops or that kind of thing. And so do you work with remodelers, or do they even want to tell you that they think that there's a foundation problem, because then the money goes to you instead of them?
Well, We do work with a lot of remodelers. In fact, we are a major remodeling company. That's what we did for the first 30 years.
Oh, okay, very
And we
good.
still do some remodeling. But it's the remodelers that bring the attention to the homeowner, because a lot of them are knowledgeable about the fact that if they put up their wall and our foundation's still pulling, their wall's going to crack. So they're actually a very good lead-in for us with the homeowner to tell them, look, you need to fix this wall. We just did a job where they were doing a kitchen remodel upstairs, and the remodeler would not build the cabinets and install them until we repaired the wall downstairs.
Oh, wow. Well,
But
very nice.
if you're working with a reputable company, you know, somebody that is certified, has all their license, has their insurance, that one thing I've noticed in this industry is that we have people that we refer to. You know, if it's something that we don't do and we know that they're a good company, we've worked with them in the past and they do good work, we'll refer business to them. And then the same goes to us. You know, we'll have different companies refer to us, like maybe some of your general contractors that see an issue and know that that's out of their realm of expertise. Well, they've worked with us before. And so that's another plus to going with a company, and as I heard on one of your other shows, doing your research.
Very good, very good. All right, and so then if you have fixed the basement and now you've got walls that are cracked and need to be repaired, if you guys don't do them yourselves, you guys can recommend that very remodeler maybe that, you know,
Definitely.
sent them your way to begin with. That's really nice. So, I don't know, did we talk about money? You know, how do people afford this kind of stuff?
Well, in a lot of cases, they have to take a loan out, or take a second mortgage on the home, or redo the first mortgage. With interest rates the way they are now, it's very easy with equity to borrow against your home to fix the problem. If it's $10,000 to $20,000, that's not so bad. But if people let these problems go and they get into the $40,000 range, of course that's scary.
Right.
And it's not a luxury product, like you say.
No.
It's something they never will see,
Right.
except the day we're putting them in.
And I know in the Kansas City area, the home selling laws have changed. I don't know if that is the way it is in your area,
They
but
have
it used to be that it was very vague, and do you have water in the basement? Well, no, it's drought. I don't have any water in the basement. I can mark no on that question and slap up some paneling and some new carpet and hope the house sells before it rains again. And that's not the way it is now. And so I think a lot of people have bought homes with major foundation damage, major leaks that they never had any clue, but now they can't do the same thing because the disclosure statements are so in-depth. Is that the way it is in Des Moines?
Yeah, and I've noticed a difference too, that it's changed over the years. You know, you had said something earlier about, you know, different codes and the wetness and how do you know in a drought when it's raining. Well, we've had some heavy rains in the past few years, you know, and that has changed a lot of the rules, a lot of the codes, you know, more inspections out on the job site. But what also that's done, when we first opened our doors, I would get a lot of phone calls from homeowners that we just bought the house 4 months ago and they swore that it was never wet, you know, and now all of a sudden, and that was quite often, it was quite frequent, but I've noticed in the past couple years, I rarely get those calls anymore. So from my standpoint, that means they're cracking down on it.
Well, very good, very good. That's much better. Well, thank you guys so much for being here. I really appreciate it. I really think that we were able to give the customers and the audience out there some good information.
Great.
Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Ruth with Your Homes Foundation.
Hubbell and Chance are committed to providing information to homeowners across the country so they can make an informed decision on their home's foundation repair. For more information on Hubbell and Chance products, go to myfoundationsolutions.com.